Hurricane Patricia, 2015, was a record-breaking storm in the eastern Pacific, notable for its unprecedented strength and rapid intensification. Here's a summary of its key details: formation and strength. Dates active, October 20th to October 24th, 2015. Category: Patricia became a Category 5 hurricane on October 23, 2015. Peak intensity, maximum sustained winds, 215 miles per hour, 345 kilometers per hour. The minimum central pressure, 872 millibars, the lowest ever recorded in the Western Hemisphere. Path and landfall. Origin: Patricia formed from a tropical disturbance off the southwestern coast of Mexico. It rapidly intensified due to favorable sea surface temperatures and low wind shear. Landfall: it made landfall on the Pacific coast of Mexico, near Cuixmala, Jalisco, on October 23, 2015. Despite its extraordinary strength, it weakened rapidly after landfall due to the mountainous terrain. Impact: affected areas, primarily southwestern Mexico, including the states of Jalisco, Colima, and Michoacán. Damage: due to Patricia's rapid weakening, the damage was less catastrophic than initially feared. However, there was still significant destruction in coastal areas, including wind damage and flooding. Fatalities: the storm resulted in a small number of direct fatalities, 6 reported, and caused widespread evacuations. Economic loss, estimated at $325 million USD, much lower than anticipated for a storm of this magnitude. Record-breaking aspects: strongest hurricane ever recorded. Patricia holds the record for the strongest sustained winds in the Western Hemisphere and the second strongest globally, after Typhoon Tip, 1979. Rapid intensification: Patricia intensified from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in just 24 hours, one of the fastest in recorded history. Despite its incredible intensity, the swift response from Mexican authorities, as well as the rapid weakening after landfall, helped minimize the storm's human and economic toll. Hurricane Katrina, 2005, was one of the deadliest and most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history. It devastated parts of the Gulf Coast, particularly New Orleans, and left a lasting impact on American disaster preparedness and response. Here's an overview of the storm and its effects. Formation and strength. Dates active, August 23 to August 31, 2005. Category: Katrina reached Category 5 status at its peak but made landfall as a strong Category 3. Peak intensity, maximum sustained winds, 175 miles per hour, 280 kilometers per hour. Minimum central pressure, 902 millibars. Path and landfall. Origin: Katrina formed over the Bahamas on August 23, 2005, as a tropical depression, intensifying into a tropical storm and then a hurricane as it moved toward Florida. Landfalls. Florida: Katrina made its first landfall near Miami as a Category 1 hurricane, causing flooding and wind damage. Gulf Coast: after moving into the Gulf of Mexico, Katrina rapidly intensified into a Category 5 hurricane. It made its second landfall on August 29 near Boris, Louisiana, as a Category 3 storm, before causing massive destruction in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Impact: affected areas, primarily Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Florida. New Orleans, Louisiana, was especially hard hit due to levee failures. Flooding in New Orleans: the most catastrophic aspect of Katrina was the flooding caused by the failure of the levee system in New Orleans. Roughly 80% of the city was submerged as the levees gave way under the storm surge. Fatalities: approximately 1,836 people died, with most deaths occurring in Louisiana and Mississippi due to drowning, building collapses, and other storm-related hazards. Displacement: hundreds of thousands of people were displaced, with many still unable to return home months after the storm. Economic damage: total damage was estimated at over $125 billion USD, making it one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. Record-breaking aspects. Costliest U.S. hurricane: at the time, Katrina held the record for the costliest hurricane until Hurricane Harvey in 2017, though it remains one of the most expensive disasters ever. Deadliest U.S. hurricane in decades. The death toll made Katrina one of the deadliest U.S. hurricanes since the 1928 Okeechobee hurricane. Response and aftermath. Federal and state response. the aftermath of Katrina exposed significant shortcomings in disaster response, including poor coordination between federal, state, and local agencies. The slow response from FEMA and other agencies was widely criticized. Evacuations. Many residents were unable or unwilling to evacuate before the storm hit, leading to overcrowded shelters, such as the Louisiana Superdome, which became notorious for poor living conditions. Long-term effects. The storm spurred reforms in disaster management and raised awareness about infrastructure vulnerabilities, particularly in coastal cities. Rebuilding efforts in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast took years, and some areas never fully recovered. Hurricane Katrina left a profound impact on the nation, highlighting vulnerabilities in infrastructure, environmental protection, and emergency preparedness. Hurricane Irma, 2017, was one of the most powerful and catastrophic Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded. It caused widespread destruction across the Caribbean and the southeastern United States. Below is an overview of the storm's development and its devastating impact, formation, and strength. Dates active, August 30th to September 12th, 2017. Category: Irma reached Category 5 intensity at its peak, maintaining that status for an extended period. Peak intensity, maximum sustained winds, 180 miles per hour, 285 kilometers per hour. Minimum central pressure, 914 millibars. Path and landfall. Origin: Irma developed from a tropical wave off the west coast of Africa on August 30th, rapidly intensifying into a tropical storm and then a hurricane as it moved across the Atlantic. Landfalls. Caribbean. Irma made several devastating landfalls as a Category 5 hurricane across islands, including Barbuda, St. Martin, the British Virgin Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Cuba. The storm struck northern Cuba as a Category 5, causing heavy damage. Florida. Irma made landfall in the Florida Keys on September 10th as a Category 4 hurricane, followed by a second U.S. landfall near Marco Island on the southwest coast of Florida. Impact. Affected areas: the Caribbean, Cuba, and the southeastern United States, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Destruction in the Caribbean. Several Caribbean islands were decimated. Barbuda was particularly hard hit, with nearly every building on the island damaged or destroyed. St. Martin, the British Virgin Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands also suffered catastrophic damage. Florida. After making landfall in the Florida Keys in southwest Florida, Irma caused widespread flooding, wind damage, and power outages, affecting millions. Cities like Miami, Naples, and Tampa experienced significant flooding and infrastructure damage. Fatalities. Irma was responsible for 134 deaths, most of them in the Caribbean, but also in Florida and the southeastern U.S. Economic damage. Irma caused an estimated $77 billion USD in damages, making it one of the costliest hurricanes on record. Record-breaking aspects. Strongest Atlantic hurricane outside the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico, with 180 miles per hour winds. Irma tied for the second strongest winds ever recorded in the Atlantic, after Hurricane Allen, 1980. Duration as a Category 5 storm, Irma remained a Category 5 hurricane for 37 hours, the second longest of any Atlantic storm, maintaining extreme intensity over a wide area. Massive evacuations. Irma prompted one of the largest evacuations in U.S. history, with over 6.5 million people ordered to evacuate in Florida. Response and aftermath. Evacuations and preparedness. Both local governments and the federal government took extensive measures to prepare for Irma's landfall, particularly in Florida. The evacuation efforts helped reduce the potential for mass casualties. Widespread power outages. Over 7.7 million homes and businesses lost power in Florida, with restoration taking weeks in some areas. Caribbean recovery. Many Caribbean islands, particularly Barbuda and St. Martin, struggled with recovery efforts due to the extensive infrastructure damage and loss of tourism revenue, a key economic driver for the region. Long-term effects, resilience, and rebuilding. While recovery was swift in parts of Florida, many areas in the Caribbean faced long-term recovery challenges, with some smaller islands not fully rebuilding for years. Environmental damage. Irma's powerful winds and storm surge caused significant environmental damage, including beach erosion and destruction of mangrove forests, which play a critical role in coastal protection. Hurricane Irma was a stark reminder of the growing intensity of Atlantic hurricanes and the need for preparedness in vulnerable coastal and island communities.